All right, the Bucks. It is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane after Orlando Pirates 3, Polokwane City 0. And this is one of those episodes where I kind of just want to, wax lyrical about each and every single one of the Orlando Pirates players, including the head coach and, Evidence Mahopa, who came on in the second half and scored 2 goals for us. But just so, because this is a show and maybe to have some kind of structure, I'm not going to start with that. I'm just going to start with maybe this, that it was an overall great performance by Pirates. I think just from start to finish, it was clear who the better team was. And of course, it will be clear, first of all, we're playing a home game at Orlando Stadium. Those are quite deadly. They've been for a while now, to be fair. I think even when Chukamanja was still at Orlando Pirates, you knew that Pirates weren't to be messed with. I think it's just such a, what do they call it? It's just such a cauldron in there. You don't come out alive. Steve Compella knows that. He's testified to that point. To say go to Orlando Pirates and relax. Go to Orlando Stadium and relax. You're not going to come out alive. And Polokwane City found out, not to say they were relaxing. I think, in fact, they were not relaxing. They tried their utmost. But, just the rampant Bucks were at it again. Much better than the first game versus Chippa United. I can be entirely honest about that. And I think it's because of the approach. I think just the way that we approached the game this time. Obviously, the one tweak, when you compare the lineups, when we played Chippa United first game of the league, compared to this one, is that we started with Kabelo Dlamini in this game in midfield alongside Talent Mbata, instead of Makehleni Makaula and Talent Mbata. Now, something I said in the post-match review of the Chippa United game, what I said is, I beg your pardon. What I said is I'm still trying to figure out which games require for us to start with Makaula and which games require for us to start with Dlamini. Because at times you start with Dlamini and we're not as strong as you think we will be. In fact, maybe there's a bit of what I might lazily term that we are bullied in midfield. And this is not to say that Kabelo Dlamini is a liability in midfield. Before someone misquotes me, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are these games where we start with Dlamini and Mbata, and it seems like we thought we're going to dominate the ball and so impose ourselves in that way, but then it just so seems like we're outnumbered in midfield. Maybe it has to do with the fact that Kabelo Dlamini is not a serial ball winner in the midfield. So I'm still trying to figure out which games require for what, and that's something I'm still watching. It's very early on in the season. I tried to watch a bit of that in preseason. I don't think we saw a lot of Dlamini playing as a 6, especially in Spain. So I wonder where that tweak came about. I mean, we saw it last season, especially in moments, not as an approach. It would be in moments where Kabelo would drift into the 6 and dictate the game from where I think he has a lot of time and space and vision and awareness, dead in the middle of that pitch where everything is just around him. So I'm still trying to figure that out. So we start in the Chippa United game with Makehleni Makaula and bring on Kabelo Dlamini in the second half, and then the game sort of changes. And we do obviously win it right at the very end. And then coming into this game, we start differently. Makehleni Makaula sitting on the bench. We start with Kabelo Dlamini in the center of the park alongside Talent Mbata, Patrick Maswanganyi ahead of them by way of formation. I'll talk about sort of how I saw us lining up, especially in possession. And then Dino van Rooyen right back, left back Dion Hoto. Fabulous fullbacks, I think, that we've got in those two. And then, the brick wall of Orlando, Sipho Shine in goal, Thabiso Sesane, who, I ought to come out and say I'm very impressed, because I've actually said that I'm not impressed with him last season. I thought there's still a lot of mistakes to his game, but I think he's actually improved massively. He's come on leaps and bounds. I think that's how you say that. He's just improved so much, alongside, Olisa Ndau, who I also think is just 3 meters tall at the back. He's just, it just seems like, he's so tall at the back, and no one can get past him. So that's the back four, and then, like I said, Dlamini and Mbatha as the 2 pivots, as you will, and then 10 is Patrick Maswanganyi. Obviously, Relebogile Mofokeng is the 11, the left wing. Saleng is the 7, the right wing, and Mabasa is the 9. That's by way of formation, but I think the way that it looks like, especially when we're in possession, you've got Dino van Rooyen, who's the one who gives us the width. You've got, Hoto, who's the one who gives us the width on the left. And then you have this weird thing going on where you think Saleng is sort of going to be the right wing, but he's the second striker. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But he looks like he's the second striker. He's just making these runs beyond Mabasa, and sometimes even running towards the left wing a lot of the time. So this is not even a once-off thing situationally. Of course, situationally, but it just seems like it's a strategy to say, Saleng is going to run beyond the striker, and why shouldn't he? He's the one person at Orlando Pirates, if you're thinking about stretching the lines of Polokwane City vertically, if you want to create those gaps, if you want to run into the space behind their defense, there's only one person to do that for you. Maybe a bit of Mofokeng, maybe a Hoto here and there, but I think Saleng is a threat in that regard. You want him to be making those runs. You want him to be stretching people, creating spaces, especially in between the defense and the midfield. And I think it's no coincidence, but maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. It's no coincidence that you see Mofokeng and Maswanganyi and even, Tshegofatso Mabasa being able now to play, as opposed to our previous game against Chippa United in the league especially, is that I thought what we struggled with is we couldn't have, these brilliant number 10s, if you want to call them that, Mofokeng, Maswanganyi, maybe a bit of Dlamini, but Dlamini is more so in a deeper position, creating from finding those people. But I thought we were struggling with receiving in pockets of space, with people who can receive and turn the opposition and make them defend, sort of trying to move around, which is great, because then you get that movement of people like Saleng, you get that movement of maybe even Tshegofatso Mabasa. And so I think in this game, you had Saleng coming infield sort of as a second striker. Dino van Rooyen was the one on the right. I think Hoto, not so much as Van Rooyen, but obviously also the one giving us the width on the left. Mofokeng more so doing his work in the left half space as what we call a 10. And then Maswanganyi also a 10, but I think he also vacates that position a lot. And I think that's obviously a license. I think there are 2 licenses that Maswanganyi is given, and I'll talk about the other one, which is just my take. I'll talk about it a bit later on. But I think the first license that Maswanganyi is given by the head coach is to, maybe go where you can impact, proceedings. And I know some people will say that is sometimes too much a burden, especially I've seen a lot of stuff about he's not been playing well. People have made a meal that Maswanganyi is not doing well because of the whole Jomo Sono thing. Just him coming out in the media speaking about Maswanganyi. Obviously, people will then go and make a meal of these things, and so if Maswanganyi doesn't perform, it's okay. It's gotten into, it's getting to him. He's in his head, all of that stuff. But I think he is given that license, and maybe it is sometimes a bit burdensome, especially when things aren't going well, is that, he's trying. He's going to come very deep to try and, link up play where you obviously want him to be the one who's receiving to create chances, but he's having to come deep maybe alongside Makaula, Mbata, and Dlamini, if Dlamini is playing there, to try and find people up front. But you obviously want him to be the one who's receiving from where he's actually at. And so, yeah, but I thought, he was doing a bit of that even yesterday, coming and combining with Dlamini and then obviously getting into that space, which is something that he does really well. You'll see him vacate that 10, come into sort of that 6, and then you'll have combination play, and then you'll burst into the 10 again to receive. And then they start doing the interplay, which we obviously love, and you saw a lot of it yesterday, where especially because, the midfield of Polokwane City is trying to follow Talente Mbata and Kabelo Dlamini. And by the way, the reason I love having Kabelo Dlamini is that he also is another one who will attract people towards him because he just dwells on the ball. He'll dwell on it, and then people will start to sort of approach him, and then you then have these spaces where he can slip a pass into, he can spot through lines, find his man, and then they start doing the interplay thing where they up the tempo a little bit. Mufukeng will do a 1-2 with this person, and I saw even Evidence Makgopa after coming on, he had a nice touch. Karim Kimvuidi, another one, good touches. Very good 1-2 touches, which it looks like this is something that Orlando Pirates is doing in training. Of course they are. Just 1-2. Don't dwell on the ball. As soon as we get into that sort of approaching the final third, is you'll see now an up in tempo where people are playing one touch, and there's just a lot of movement. Yesterday, one of the other things I was doing, I was watching Tshegofatso Mabasa, just the amount of movement he's making without receiving the ball. And on his part, I'm sure, as a striker, that will be a bit frustrating, but it's good overall because you want that. You want people moving, having options. You want people like Dlamini, when he gets on the ball, he's got 3 options. And then he's also got Dino van Rooyen open on the right as well. And then, you've got Talente Mbata, you've got, it's just, it's just one of those days where I just want to wax lyrical about my mighty Orlando Pirates. But yeah, so the system was a bit, a bit of a surprise, or a bit different. Maybe not a surprise because we've seen this whole 2 10s and then this box thing. But I thought what was particularly impressive with me, what I saw was very impressive, is that a lot of the time when we do the box in midfield where we have 2 10s, 2 6s, where maybe it would be Dlamini, Mbata as the base of the box, and then maybe you'd have Maswanganye and Mufukeng as the box, is that you would have someone like Mabasa obviously as the 9, and then you'd have Saleng out wide on the touchline. You'd have Hoto maybe as the one on the touchline on the left, as the wide players giving us the width. But you'd have a base, you'd have the 3 behind the midfield. You'd have maybe your right back, Munyani, someone like that. And then you'd have obviously the 2 center backs in Sesane and Olisanda. But what yesterday I saw, which was, brave from Orlando Pirates, and, being brave is something I've been calling for because, with all due respect, I think in this league, Orlando Pirates has what it takes to just suffocate teams and throw men up front. I know obviously playing against someone like Ozonapolis, whom I think wasn't threatening at all for Orlando Pirates, you maybe want to be conservative and say, hey, Dino van Rooyen, can you make sure? Because obviously Apollos will be the outlet for them. He can carry the ball distances and dribble at people. So obviously when they win the ball, they'll be looking at Apollos to then counter with him, counter-attack. And he's going to carry them and bring, Polokwane out, just carrying the ball for them. So obviously that's the threat with throwing numbers up front. But I think, when you've got Sesane and Da being as utterly dominant as they are lately, you can afford actually. And when you've got Sipho Shaina again, I feel like I spend time a lot on this platform talking about offensive players where I really don't give flowers to people like Shaina, who for a while now has just been, he's just been playing at the top of his game. I think he's operating at the top of the PSL currently. Obviously, there's Ronwen Williams, and I don't want to get into the whole Sundowns Pirates debates, but I think he's operating at a very high PSL level. Sipho Shane, and I love it for him and I love it for us as well. But you can afford to then, be so brave, Orlando Pirates, to only have, Nda and Sasane remaining at the back, saying, you know what, we're gonna actually attack with 6, and then we're gonna have Mbata, and we're gonna have like a line of 6 up front, Van Rooyen, Hoto, Saleng and Mabasa as sort of 2 strikers, and then we're gonna have Mufokeng and Maswanganye as the 2 10s, and then we're only gonna have Mbata and Dlamini playing in front of Polokwane City, trying to, pass through people. And then we're only gonna have, 2 center backs remaining. And it's like, that is so brave by Orlando Pirates. And I'm saying that, we can afford to do it because, our defense is so dominant. It really is. I just can't stop, thinking about how, Olisanda, we've always known he's so much class. But I think he just looks like he's grown an extra 5 meters. The way he's so tall. You just can't get past him. He looks stronger. Even something I was watching yesterday, especially in the first half, because I was sitting very close to, I was sitting on the defensive, I think that was in the second half, I beg your pardon. I was sitting very close to, I was sitting directly in front of the Orlando Pirates defense at the stadium. And so one of the things that I like to look at is, people off the ball. I like to look at when the ball is out of touch, when maybe Polokwane City have tried to attack us and that sort of thing. What's the reaction of people? How are people reacting and that sort of thing? And of course, this is not like, I'm not saying anything revolutionary here. He's obviously wearing the captain's arm belt, so he's obviously trusted with the responsibility to be somewhat of a leader. But you just see him giving all of these instructions. And one thing that characterizes Nda, obviously even in his game he looks like it, he's just so composed. But even in his leadership, he doesn't look like he's just shouting and screaming everywhere. He's not diving into, like the way that he plays, he's not diving into things, he's not throwing himself at stuff. Everything about him is just so composed. And, he looks like he's slow and that kind of thing, but he's measured. I think that's the word with Nda. He's so measured, his passing, the way that he'll maybe, run with it a little, take a few yards with the ball, get into midfield, and then pass someone, and then he'll win his headers. And when he goes to ground, he's winning his tackles now. And it's just like, Nda, like you are so dominant, And it's so impressive because even his partner alongside him, Thabiso Sesane, who I think, yes, look, this is not a point to criticize him. I think his game still has a little bit of erratic at moments because he wears his heart on his sleeves, and I think that's what you get with people like, and I think actually the Pepe nickname is so fitting for Sesane because those kind of guys, you can worry sometimes that in a heated game he could get a red card. The way that he's so, he plays with his heart on his sleeves. He's so passionate. But I think when everything is going well, he just looks amazing. And I think, he's just been great defensively for Orlando Pirates. Shout out. And something I love to see is him getting the armband. Well, it was a surprise, but when I thought about it and looked at who's on the pitch, my only person that I thought maybe would get the armband ahead of him, maybe 2 people actually, I thought it would be Hoto, but thinking about how soft-spoken Hoto is, and he does seem like, especially with the PR stuff, the media stuff, he looks like he's shy and maybe he leads by example in his work rate, but he doesn't seem like he's someone who can rally everyone else to come on, let's come on, you guys. And obviously Maswanganye, I think, was he still on the pitch? I think he was still on the pitch. I beg your pardon. But I thought maybe Sipho Shine might get the armband ahead of Thabiso Sesane when Nda walks off. But it goes to Sesane, and with his recent emergence in the first team, it's so impressive that he's come that distance in such a short time to be the leader, ahead of, obviously, again, Sipho Shine on the pitch. Nkosinathi Sibisi is the one who comes on, and yet the armband goes to, Sisane. And Sbisi, you think about, he was the captain at Golden Arrows, was somewhat of a senior for a long time ahead of Sisane at Orlando Pirates. And yet Sisane is the one who gets the armband. Again, I say Hoto was on the pitch, but the surprising one was even when Makaula came on the pitch, the armband didn't go to Makaula, it remained with Sisane. And so, shout out to Thabiso Sisane for his improvement, his, rise to where he's at in his game for Orlando Pirates. So important for us, and we enjoy that. And yeah, overall, I thought, very rampant Orlando Pirates. I don't want to stay for too long. I keep having to say this because I ramble a lot, and yet there's still a lot that I could say. There really is a lot that I could say, but maybe let me wrap it with this. I think something that was a positive, again, that I like to see was the dominance, but I also actually love the idea. If any of you will have seen it, I think there's a clip of me going around, those who've seen it, where, I've said that I think for Orlando Pirates to challenge for the league and, even win it, we need to see Monapule Saleng on the pitch a lot, and we need Lebohile Mofokeng to impact games in the way of numbers a lot more. Because what you get obviously with Saleng, and I don't want to, again, beat this point like a dead horse, is that what you get with Saleng on the pitch is you might get a bit of frustration, but you're also going to get numbers. You're going to get goals. You're going to get those things. So the more you play Saleng, the more you're thinking, if Mabasa is not scoring, there's always going to be a heroic from Saleng in the course of a season. In fact, not a heroic, there's going to be like 10 of them where he's going to come up with, like, in this game, he scores from such a tight angle. And I mean, you look at it in the first half, he skied one where everyone is just sort of like, why is he shooting there? And that's his game, Saleng. He's a trier of things. And some people get upset at those things, but obviously I'm not, because I've come to terms with what Saleng's role is at Pirates, is that you need someone who just frees also Mabasa in the box, because I was looking at one particular attack that we had, and I'm just looking at the box and I see Saleng just bursting into the box, being the second player in the box alongside Mabasa. And I'm just thinking, okay, so there's that extra problem for Polokwane City, and that then frees up, for someone who can then arrive with a late run, and it gives us those numbers in the box. And obviously with the goal is he receives in such a tight angle, he still takes a shot back of the net, 1-0 Orlando Pirates. From there on out, we win the game. And so I obviously love that. I love what's happening with Saleng is playing, Mofokeng is playing. And Mofokeng is another one who you see, he's trying these things. And again, people are upset with our forwards trying. Forwards have to try. That's the only way they're going to score. And they're going to be wasteful a lot of the time. But then they're also going to come up with a moment and which you didn't even imagine from your couch or from the stadium seat. And then it's like, that's what it takes to score, So I love that. I think long may that continue. Long may Mofokeng playing, Saleng playing, being the extra man supplementing Mabasa with regards to scoring, because you don't want a situation like what we're seeing a bit, where there's a bit of a goal-scoring rut with Mabasa. And it's like no one else can put the ball in the back of the net. So you want Saleng to be scoring these goals. And better yet, you want Mahopa to be able to come on and score his 2 goals, especially if maybe no one is scoring. Maybe if the score was 0-0, you want to be able to have an impact sub who can come on and score as well. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you've got someone like Saleng who, I take my head off. And I'm probably going to say this every single episode when he plays, because he's just that sort of player. He's gonna do something for his teammates, and I love it. But the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on was, one of the other things that with regards Patrick Maswanganyi is that, of course there's games where, and I'll be first to say it, there's games where he's maybe not as impactful, and then maybe it gets a little bit to his head. The idea of, the being the, the 10 and all of the media attention and all of that, maybe. But I think yesterday something I was thinking was, something, I think the head coach actually gives Patrick Maswanganyi the license to do what he does. I think maybe how it started out was Maswanganyi obviously is is the kind of player that wants to carry the team. That's just the way that he is. That's the way that he's built. That's the way that his football is tailored. He's just the player who wants to be the one responsible, which is great. However, I think upon the coach seeing that and the response of the whole fan base to that, seeing that it actually galvanizes, it brings everyone together at Orlando Pirates. Upon the head coach seeing that, I wonder if the head coach has then said, you know what, Tito, do that more. Why? That's because if it's going to get the fans supporting the team, if it's going to get this oneness that you feel with Orlando Pirates, this momentum, this support, if that's what it's going to take Tito, loosely showboating. I say that very loosely. I don't think it's showboating for this particular reason, because I think it's a license that he's given, actually. I think he's given the license to awaken the crowd, because then the team feeds off the crowd, being supportive and that sort of thing. So, the game is 1-0, we're winning, and then Tito does that, and then it's almost as though that's that. Because, again, you look at the head coach, what he does when Orlando Pirates is 1-0 up front. He will pull Kabelo Dlamini and he'll bring on Makehleni Makaula, and obviously that's a bit of game management there to say, okay, now we want to shore things up. We trust that we're going to still be on the ball a bit more, but Makehleni then gives us that awareness defensively more than Kabelo Dlamini, especially because obviously Kabelo is now a bit tiring. It's getting 67 minutes, 70. He's tiring. So if you can bring on Makehleni Makaula to shore things up, that's great, right? But there's always that danger to say, if Orlando Pirates is 1-0 up, you're still not relaxed. I'm not. However great things are going at the stadium, I still think when Orlando Pirates is 1-0 up, that's where the game starts for me. It's like, now, come on, guys, shore things up. Can you go on and win it? Because, again, I don't want to keep saying this, but too often you've seen a 1-0 lead go down to a 1-1 or something like that. So he obviously brings on Makehleni Makaula every single time that, we're up front. He'll bring on someone like that and change from that risk thing. Why should he? It's 70 minutes. Maybe someone might say to retain maybe the ball better, but you got to remember, maybe Polokwane City is even playing for those last 20 minutes of the game to say we're then going to throw the kitchen sink and have Kabelo Dlamini see if he can chase our midfielders, he can chase our wing players. And so the coach then brings on Makehleni, I think, for that reason. But the second thing he does, I think he then gives Patrick Maswanganyi the license to say, look, we don't want things to kind of just fizzle out. Let's bring the fans even more behind. Let's suffocate these opposition. Let's just make sure there's nothing, no life for them. Don't let them be encouraged anyhow. So Tito, if we're up front and maybe it's going towards the end of the game, can you make sure that the fans are still, behind the team? Let's get them, and then that just translates on the pitch, and then you get the second goal and you get the third. And I think that's kind of how things goes. And I think the head coach is the one who gives Maswanganyi that license, and I love it. But let me leave it here. I've spoken maybe for half an hour now. I just don't want to bore you to death. But great win, Orlando Pirates. Shout out. I love seeing Karim Kimvwidi come on the pitch. I'm going to make such a brave statement that might get me, hated by some people or whatever, or term me as I have my favorites or whatever, something like that. But I think, Karim Kimvwidi, I still make the shouts that he's got the potential to be the best midfielder in the country, playing in the country. I think he's got the potential to be so complete. yeah, football just comes so easy to him. Like he's just a 21-year-old who's just bullying everyone around. He can. He's not yet doing it, but he can. And it's so easy. He'll just like lob the ball over someone, and for him, it's just like second nature. He doesn't even think about these things. He was just like sort of, remember his debut, he's just turning people in the midfield as though it's nothing. And I think I love seeing him get minutes. I obviously want him to maybe have his head right a little bit more, mature as a player, and keep things simple sometimes. But I think by way of potential, I really think that Karim Kimvwili could possibly be the best midfielder in the country if he wants, and if Jose Rivero wants. I think Jose Rivero obviously wants. And he can be the right coach to guide him towards that. And I think part of guiding him towards that is putting him on the bench and letting him think about why he's not playing. And maybe part of the thinking about why he's not playing is that every other player who's playing is very responsible. Bukabele Dlamini, they're responsible. Patrick Maswanganyi, responsible. And so it's the responsibility part maybe that Kimvwili will have to grow in. But I think by way of talent and ability, sure, I'm afraid for, how scary, like, the depth that Orlando Pirates have. If you even think about that, there's a lot of talk around the potential of Muleleke, and it's just like, what is this squad? Who are these? Who are these players that we have? And but yeah, let me leave it here until the next one. Up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video from Talking Buccaneers. If you did, please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our future content.